This is the story of a couple whose relationship becomes entangled in a web of doubt, where the boundaries of freedom are pushed so far that it leads them down a path from which there is no return. On one side, there is Rosie, who misuses her freedom, shaking the very foundation of their relationship. On the other side, there is Jack, who tries his best to save his family from falling apart. But in this desperate effort, he himself gets trapped in a quagmire so deep that escaping from it becomes nearly impossible. It all becomes more complicated, so let's unravel every hidden secret of this thrilling and unsettling story. The story begins with a man named Jack riding his bicycle through the forest on his way home. As soon as he arrives, he finds his beautiful wife, Rosie, sitting on the stairs, staring at him intently. Jack looks at her and asks what's wrong. Rosie gives a faint smile and, without saying a word, walks into her room. After this, Jack and Rosie send their daughter, Trixie, to the babysitter. After sending Trixie to the babysitter, both Jack and Rosie start preparing to attend a party. Rosie begins getting ready, and Jack, full of love and affection, kneels down to help her put on her shoes. At that moment, it seemed as if there was a deep bond of love between them. But the reality is something entirely different, and very soon, that truth is about to unfold before us. Now, Jack and Rosie arrive at the party, looking perfectly fine together. Many of their friends are also present, and everything appears to be going smoothly. Just then, a man named John enters the party. The moment Rosie sees him, her face lights up with happiness. She greets him with a hi and immediately walks toward him. Jack silently observes everything. Then, Rosie takes John outside the party, and the two of them find a secluded spot where they start kissing each other. Jack watches this scene unfold through the window, yet he says nothing. He quietly walks away. The truth is, he already knows everything about his wife. Now, Jack and Rosie's friends were also aware of this toxic relationship. One day, Jack's friend, Mary, spoke to him about it and asked, "You know everything, so why are you still holding on to this relationship?" Jack replied, "Rosie should be free to do whatever she wants in her life. I have no objections. If I wanted, I could end this relationship anytime, and she knows that. But I love her deeply, and I don't want to break my family. However, I am certain that one day, Rosie will definitely understand my love." After saying this, Jack took a drink from the bartender and walked into a room. John followed him inside and, with a shameless smirk, said, "I just wanted to thank you for your hospitality. It's truly incredible. You know, most husbands get jealous when they see their wives with someone else. But you are an amazing person." Jack remained calm and simply replied, "Have you heard about Martin? The man who suddenly disappeared a while ago? He was a very good man, too. I once had a friend who, just like you, was after Rosie," Jack said. "But one day, in a fit of rage, I killed him. And to this day, no one has ever found his body." Hearing this, John was visibly shaken. But he quickly composed himself and said, "You must be joking, right?" Jack calmly replied, "How you choose to take this information is entirely up to you." John's face turned pale, and without wasting another second, he hurriedly left the party. Rosie noticed this and tried to stop him, but John made up some excuse and walked away. After the party ended, Jack and Rosie returned home. On the way, Rosie asked, "Hey, what did you say to John all of a sudden?" Jack, lying effortlessly, replied, "I didn't say anything that would make him leave the party." The next morning, Jack was seen dropping his daughter off at school. As he was leaving, he ran into a friend on the way. With a playful smirk, the friend jokingly asked, "So, have you started killing people now?" "All our friends are talking about the same thing," one of Jack's friends said. Jack laughed and replied, "Maybe John is the one spreading all this." So I just played along with him, but the poor guy actually got scared. A little while later, Two more of Jack's friends asked him the same question. Jack reassured everyone, saying it was all just a joke. However, when Rosie found out that Jack had tried to scare John by mentioning Martin's name, she became furious. Arguing with Jack, she said, "You shouldn't have done that. You should have gotten rid of Martin first. And now John too." Jack firmly clarified, "I was just joking." But Rosie was unwilling to believe him. She replied, "I'm inviting John over for dinner tonight. You will have to apologize to him." Later that night, John arrived at their house for dinner. As the evening progressed, everyone sat down and began eating. Watching all of this, you might wonder how such a polite and caring husband can handle everything so calmly, even after knowing about his wife's affair. But if you were living here, you would understand that in Western culture, these things are not considered as awkward or shameful as they are in our Indian culture. After dinner, Rosie turns to her daughter, Trixie, and says, "Tonight, your father will tell you a bedtime story." In reality, she says this because she wants to spend some alone time with John. Jack understands everything but remains silent. He takes Trixie to bed, tells her a story, and quickly puts her to sleep. Then, he comes downstairs. As he walks into the living room, he looks into the mirror and sees everything Rosie and John lost in their moment together. A surge of jealousy and anger rises within him. In frustration, he storms into the kitchen and smashes a plate on the floor. Hearing the noise, Rosie comes into the kitchen and casually tells Jack, "Bring another drink for John," before walking away into another room. Jack takes a drink for John, but John still has doubts about the murder story. Looking at Jack, he says, "Don't you think you should apologize to me for that murder joke?" Hearing this, Jack drops his playful tone and, with a serious expression, replies, "Actually, that murder joke wasn't a joke at all. I really did it. I smashed his head in with a hammer and finished him off." Now, no amount of apologies will bring him back. Upon hearing this, the light in John's eyes fades, and fear grips him. Without wasting a second, he rushes out of there. But this raises a new question: was Jack telling the truth? Or was it just a way to scare John? We will soon find out. After this, Jack and his family are seen at a party, where many people, including their friends, are present. There, Jack meets a man named Mark. Mark meets Jack's best friend, Kelly's husband, who is a writer and often travels outside the city. The two of them start talking about personal matters. The conversation begins with Mark asking, "What do you do for work?" Jack replies, "I've retired now, but I still do a little work. Most of my time is spent cycling." Rosie adds, "Jack actually created a microchip that the military uses in their drone systems to target their objectives." Everyone present, for the first time, realizes that Jack is not only a genius engineer, but also a successful man. Furthermore, he is wealthy. But the unfortunate truth is that, despite having so much, Jack doesn't find peace in his life. For only a truly faithful wife can make a man truly rich in spirit. Everyone at the party is having a great time, and Jack begins dancing with his best friend, Kelly. Seeing this, Rosie becomes very jealous. A few days later, we see a scene where Trixie and other children are playing at school. Meanwhile, Jack, observing the situation, dances with Trixie. At this point, he receives a call from the bank, informing him that Rosie recently transferred $3,000 to another account. When he asks for more details, he learns that the money was transferred to a guy named Charlie, who plays live piano. Hearing this, Jack realizes that Rosie has found a new lover, as John has left her. After this, Jack starts searching for the guy. And one evening, when he goes to a restaurant for a live piano session, he sees Rosie sitting there, listening to the piano with great interest. From this, Jack understands that this is something new. After Rosie's new relationship begins, she starts coming home late at night, which clearly indicates that she is deeply involved with Charlie. Jack begins to feel jealous, but this time he chooses not to care. Then one night, Rosie doesn't come home, and the next morning when she returns, Jack is furious. He confronts her, asking, "Where were you all night? You have a family and a 6-year-old daughter, and now you're involved with this guy named Charlie." Rosie remains unfazed. When Jack questions her about the large money transfer, instead of responding, she starts telling Jack how she spent the whole night and who she was with. Because Rosie knows that Jack is jealous, and that no matter what she does, Jack will never stay away from her. She takes full advantage of the situation. Now, we see that one of Jack's friends, Miles, throws an apple party at his house, where Rosie invites Charlie as well. As soon as Charlie enters the party, Rosie clings to him. After introducing him to everyone, Charlie starts playing the piano. People, including Rosie, start dancing in joy, but Jack doesn't like any of this. Later, Rosie introduces Charlie to Jack as her new friend, and Jack reluctantly starts talking to him. That night, Jack is searching for Rosie, and when he enters the house, he sees Rosie and Charlie secretly coming out of a room. He immediately realizes what they were doing in there. We then see that Rosie and Charlie are swimming in the pool with everyone else, and at this time, the two of them are very close to each other. Jack was joking, but seeing all this, he was getting very angry. However, what could he do? Suddenly, it started raining, and everyone rushed inside the house one by one. Jack was the last one to enter. Inside the house, everyone began preparing some food and enjoying themselves. But after a while, when Rosie went searching for Charlie, she saw his lifeless body in the pool and screamed. Everyone quickly pulled Charlie out of the pool and began performing CPR on him. There was immediate concern about what had happened, but Charlie was already dead. Soon, the police arrived to investigate and began questioning everyone. At this point, Rosie became furious and started screaming in front of the police that Jack killed Charlie. Hearing this, others told the police that the couple's relationship hadn't been going well, and that Rosie was just venting her anger. Since the whole time, Jack had just been with them at the house, it wouldn't be right to suspect him. Since there was no evidence or witness against Jack, the police placed him in another room. After some questioning, they let him go. But as a result of this incident, Rosie began drifting further away from Jack. A few days later, we see Jack cycling, repeatedly reflecting on the event. He says to himself that he drowned Charlie. He also knows what Rosie and Charlie would do alone together. Deep in his thoughts, he starts to feel troubled, thinking that he might have been the one to drown Charlie in the pool. It was Jack, and in a fit of rage, he had done all of this. But no one knows the truth that Jack is a clever man who has been ruthlessly killing his wife's lovers. Later, we see Jack dropping his daughter off at school. As he leaves, he meets his friend Kelly, who tells him, "I shouldn't be saying this, but Rosie came to our house that day and sent a private detective after you. Following your visit, she was with my husband, Mark. This has been kept because after Charlie's death, Rosie is suspecting you." Then, we see that one night, Jack invites Mark and Kelly over for dinner, and later takes Mark to another room where he keeps his things. He tells Mark to stop being influenced by his wife and stop sending detectives after him, because you were there that night too. Jack asks, "So what do you think? Do you think I killed Charlie?" Mark doesn't answer, but it's clear that he won't let Jack go so easily. We know Mark is a writer, and he's very interested in this, because he actually wants to write a major crime story about Jack's personal life, something that could bring him fame and recognition. But to what extent his interest in this will lead him, we will find out soon. The story moves forward a bit, and one day Jack learns that Rosie has made a new boyfriend, a young guy from her college. Jack sees them hanging out together, and Rosie's new boyfriend's name is Tony. Then, one day, Tony comes over to meet Rosie at home. Jack is also at home and understands everything as he watches. Afterward, They all have dinner together, and whenever the chance arises, Tony goes to Rosie's room and starts becoming romantic with her. Jack secretly watches all of this, and during this moment, Rosie also notices him, which puts her in an awkward situation. The next day, Jack gets into a car. He starts following Tony, and when the opportunity presents itself, he drives his car right in front of Tony's, casually saying, "Hey, you're here! Rosie has been trying to contact you for a while. Maybe she has something to discuss with you. Come with me, I'll drop you off." Now, Tony gets into Jack's car, thinking he's going to meet Rosie, but Jack drives him much farther away, into a secluded spot in the woods where no one is around. Once they're parked, Tony gets out of the car and asks, "But what are we doing here?" In the meantime, Jack picks up a stone and strikes Tony on the head. Before Tony can understand what's happening, Jack picks up another large stone and hits him again. As a result, Tony loses control and falls into a ravine, where he dies immediately. Afterward, Jack goes down to check if Tony is really dead, and then he throws the stone away from Tony's body. He begins to tie up Tony's body, and during this time, he also finds Tony's wallet, which he keeps for himself. He then takes it to the river and submerges it so no one will find the body. The next day, Rosie and Trixie are seen preparing for a picnic. They were getting ready for the trip when Jack comes back home. Rosie asks him if he wants to come with them, to which he agrees and asks where they are planning to go. Trixie says, "We are going somewhere nearby." They are heading towards the forest, and in the next scene, we see them at a place where Jack becomes fearful in his heart, because it is actually the same place where he buried Tony's body near the river. They are both talking together, and Rosie is looking very happy, while Trixie is wandering around with her dog and gazing towards the forest. At this point, Rosie asks Jack, "Why do you want to stay with me when one after another people keep leaving me?" Jack, speaking very romantically, replies, "I don't know, but I just want to spend my entire life with you." Hearing this, Rosie is impressed, which leads both of them to come very close to each other. Then, Trixie calls out to her father. Jack goes to see her, and Trixie says that her dog is moving near the riverbank. Jack looks towards the river and realizes that Tony's dead body is now visible from above. Now, anyone can see it, so he quickly makes an excuse and leaves with his family. But Rosie says, "I forgot my scarf there." Jack reassures her, "Don't worry, I'll come back tomorrow and bring your scarf," because he needs to get rid of Tony's body again. After returning home, we see that Jack says Rosie had called Tony earlier, and he hadn't spoken to her for 2 days. Maybe he has left like the others. Later, Rosie comes to Jack and hugs him, asking, "Will you stay in my room tonight?" Because she usually slept alone. After that, they both watch a movie together, getting very close and beginning a romantic mood. The next morning, Jack takes his bicycle and goes back to the same place. He goes there and tries to submerge Tony's body in the water again with a stick. Meanwhile, Rosie goes to Jack's snail room and, after a little investigation, finds Tony's wallet. She realizes everything. Jack has finally killed Tony as well. On the other hand, Jack is trying to submerge Tony's body again when Mark arrives and asks, "What are you doing here?" Jack gets nervous and starts making excuses. But Mark realizes something is wrong, and when he moves a bit forward, he sees Tony's body and gets scared. He quickly takes his car and drives off at high speed. Seeing this, Jack starts chasing him on his bicycle, knowing that Mark will go to the police. However, Mark drives very fast and goes a long distance. Jack, taking a shortcut, manages to reach him and, as he cuts in front of Mark's car, Mark loses control and crashes into a cliff, falling straight into the river. Mark dies at the scene due to the accident, and on the other hand, Rosie loses everything. Realizing this, she decides to leave the house forever, packing her belongings with Trixie. However, after a while, Trixie returns and throws all the packed things into the pond. Seeing this, Rosie asks, "What are you doing?" To which Trixie replies, "We won't leave Dad and go anywhere." Hearing this, Rosie falls into deep thought and decides to stay, realizing that leaving would break the family and lead to destruction. Perhaps Jack was doing all this for her. After this, she burns Tony's wallet, which could have been evidence. Now, at the end of the story, we return to the opening scene where Jack is riding his bicycle through the forest. He comes home, and Rosie is sitting there, just staring at him. Seeing this, Jack asks, "What happened?" Then, Rosie smiles and without saying anything, goes to her room. Thus, this story tells the tale of betrayal in love and wrong decisions. The characters stuck in between teach us a deep lesson. We should never misuse our freedom. Rosie had used her freedom as a tool for happiness, and, in the name of desire, led herself down the wrong path, which not only destroyed her life, but also the lives of her loved ones. On the other hand, Jack, who had always been concerned about saving his family from breaking apart, finally started walking down the path he never wanted, the one where he lost his freedom. We all have the right to freedom, but if we don't understand our boundaries and the value of relationships, the same freedom can destroy us badly. I hope you enjoyed this story, and I look forward to sharing another interesting story with you.